to 6 today. This is the list. Alistair Cook, David Warner, Jeffrey Boycott, Gordon Greenwich, Graham Smith. Some tough names here: Herbert Sutcliffe, Jack Hobbs, Len Hutton, Matthew Hayden, Sunil Gavaskar. Chris Gale from our very own West Indies, and Verinder Sehwag. Wayne, Lance, my head already started hurting. I mean, we have some tough names to pick from. Lance, your first opinion when you heard me call those names out?
Very, very tough. Very players with solid batting average. At least half of them have batting averages above 50. And if you look at the history of the game, I know in ultimate challenges like these, the older players, the players from the 90s, 20s and 30s may not get so much support online. But when you have someone like Herbert Sutcliffe and Jack Hobbs, their batting average as a pair, their partnership average pair was 87, which is phenomenal. No other opening pair in the history of Test cricket who scored significant runs as opening pairs would have averaged anything close to the 87 that Hobbs and Sutcliffe have. But I am pretty certain that they may not get the love from more online supporters, but their records were pretty solid. Of course, in that time, you didn't have as many teams playing Test cricket and so on, so it may not have been that difficult for them as it is now for the players of this generation. Well, let me hear from the expert, the man himself, Wayne Lewis. Wayne, what are you thinking? Yeah, Wayne, you are a cricket expert.
Sutcliffe and Hobbs. I mean, it's not about a partnership, it's about an individual position. So the fact that they have this as a great partnership will not help them in this situation.
Yeah, both averaged over 50 though, Wayne.
I agree. I
both
agree.
averaged over,
but look
over
at,
50.
Look at Sehwag and Chris Gale, for example. Both of them have scored, I think, 2 triple centuries, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, not even by. I suspect that neither of them might get in. In this, this open position, because if you ask me, there's one person already. Is who's going to partner Sunil Gavaskar? That is my position going forward. Who will partner Sunil Gavaskar?
And I want Matthew Hayden. Like, I am bent on ensuring that we get Matthew Hayden in that. So we have to introduce our panelists. So here to help us now narrow the list to 6, we have our former West Indies fast bowler, Tino Bess. Tino would probably have bowled a few of those on this list. We also have cricket commentator Barry Wilkinson and regional cricket umpire Chris Taylor. Gentlemen, welcome.
Hello to you guys.
So all of you have seen the short list. Of course, we have to narrow down to 6 by the end of today's show. I'll start with you, Chris. When you saw the list, what came to mind? Who is your top pick so far?
Not hearing Chris.
We're not. No, the audio for Chris. Maybe I can move to Barry while Chris sorts the audio. Barry, do you have any favorites in the lineup?
I can give you my 6 that I've chosen.
Barry, 6 already? No. Tell me your top 2. I want to hear your top 2 because I'm bent on getting Matthew Hayden into that ultimate 11.
Top 2. He's not in my top 2. I actually have Hutton and Hobbs as my top 2.
But why would you think? We're having a bit of connection issues there, Lance. We will have, Lance, I'll have to turn to you because we are really having some technical difficulties.
We didn't try Tino yet. Let's see. We may have to hear how Tino sounds, but it's significant that Barry is so anxious to get rid of his 6 already, because we're going to do them 3 by 3. We're going to eliminate 3, then eliminate the next 3 today, so that we end up with 6 going into tomorrow when the final decisions will be made. But Barry seems bent on his preferred 6 at the moment and his eliminated 6.
You know who I like as well? I like Len Hutton, because I felt like when I looked at his averages, I even studied a bit of his batting and whatnot, and he's the sort of person, well, first of all, he played for Yorkshire, which is a team back in that time. Once you played for them, you know how to protect your wicket. So, I studied him and I felt like Len is another one that I would want to keep on my team. He's somebody who protects his wicket. Wayne, what's your take on my view?
I'm listening to you. I mean, that's an excellent pick, and the way I've articulated is quite nice. But there are others. I mean, it's such a classy field here for us to narrow this down to 6 today and then 2 tomorrow. It's so difficult because even Jeff Boycott, for example, I saw him at Sabina Park, and that man his technique was just immaculate. His ability to concentrate for long hours and bat for long periods was such a fantastic cricketer he was. I think he scored like 24 test centuries. And of course, he played for Yorkshire for years as well. Copybook type of opener, and he played in an era where it's important to get the shine off the ball and allow the guys in the middle to take it forward. And he was such an expert in doing that. And I thought that his technique also was phenomenal. Yeah. So we have some good cricketers here. I just talked about the fact that Christopher Gale and Verinder Sehwag, both batsmen, have scored double, triple centuries twice in Test cricket, and I fear that neither of them will get in the final 2. So that tells you the class of these guys that we're looking at.
Yeah, significant too, Wayne, that you've been focusing on Jeff Boycott in your comments just now. There are 5 Englishmen in the list of 12 that we have at the moment. Of course, Jeff Boycott among them, and Sutcliffe and Hobbs, who I had spoken of earlier. And I don't want the viewers to get the feeling that I'm supporting Hobbs and Sutcliffe. I just wanted to divulge the information that a lot of people may not be looking at, because we're talking about the 1920s and 30s. But I think Tino Best is ready to talk to us. Tino, are you hearing us? And let's see if we can hear you.
Hi, good evening, guys. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, it's noisy, but we're hearing you a bit.
Okay, let me go inside. I wanted to make sure I get...
No, we're hearing you. We're hearing you okay. I think we're hearing you okay. Tino,
okay, cool.
So you see the 12. You see the 12 that's there. We have to eliminate 6 of them. We have to eliminate 6 of them on today's show. We're going to show you the first 5 now of the list on picture graphics. And can you tell us which would be the ones you would eliminate from the 5 you'll see first? And these are the 5 coming up. Cook, Warner, Boycott, Greenidge, Graham Smith. Who are the unsafe ones for you?
The unsafe ones would be Cook, Warner, Graham Smith, probably.
Cook, Warner, and Graham Smith for Tino.
From those 5 that you just showed me,
yes.
I think the younger players in Alistair Cook, David Warner, and Graham Smith were more look to lose out in those 5. And the 2 that I would have gone for is Jeff Boycott and Greenidge. Out of those 5.
Out of those 5.
But Tino, Boycott, do you remember when he took himself into exile and, he was just doing his own thing? Many people felt he was selfish. Wouldn't that have a part to play in you dropping him?
Nah, not at all. Did you watch Michael Jordan? Did you watch Michael Jordan documentary?
Yes, I loved it, yeah.
And then the next thing is I'm a Yorkshireman, so I got to go with my Yorkshireman.
I understand.
Sorry.
No problem. So do we have Barry on now? We're going to bring Barry into the discussion because Barry is confident of who he wants to take away from the list. Barry, from the 5 that Lance mentioned previously, who would you remove?
If you put the 5 up again, I'll have a look. But the only person I would actually keep from that 5 is actually Graham Smith. The rest wouldn't make it for me. And you see, the thing about it is I look a lot at where they made their runs. And a lot of those players that you had up, David Warner, for example, 75% of David Warner's Test centuries have come in Australia. He's an Australian batsman. Alistair Cook, for example, has played 161 Tests. He played the most out of the entire 12. And Alistair Cook averages 33 centuries. So he's played way too many Tests to have such an average and also have such least centuries out of the bunch. So Alistair wouldn't get in there for me, unfortunately. And Jeffrey Boycott was one of those English batsmen who had a couple of good innings in the West Indies, 1 or 2 in Australia, but he did not like to score runs away from England. He was an England batsman, played a lot in the summer, scored heavily in the summer. So I look at those things very carefully. And when you look at Graham Smith, how he captained South Africa with such aplomb, but was still so consistent, he is just one of the best openers that the Test cricket arena has ever created. And Graham Smith, I think he averages something like 48, 27 centuries. But his win-loss ratio was so prolific. To captain from 22 to 34 in 12 years of dominance, he definitely has to be among that list. It hurts me to leave out Sir Gordon Greenidge, a West Indian. But when you look at it, Gordon Greenidge average 44, 19 centuries. which meant that his turnover rate, his conversion rate could have been much better. He was perhaps more prolific for the Greenwich and Haynes partnership rather than standing alone. So it would hurt me to leave out Gordon Greenwich, but if I had to be honest, he would not be in that five that you have up on the screen.
Let's hear from Chris. Chris?
I think we're still having...
We're having audio problems.
Yeah, Chris, can you hear us? Oh, I think we're having real problems with Chris. So Barry only kept Graham Smith from that first five.
What about David Warner? Like, aren't we thinking about...
Well, he explained he thinks Warner scores too many of his hundreds in Australia. What do you think about Warner?
And secondly, I appreciate Warner. Warner is the only batsman I knew that actually played T20 cricket and you know, and improved so much where he's so dominant in Test cricket. But he still played. I don't know that I want to select a player who is actually actively playing at the moment. I want to select when your career. No, because you don't know what can happen down the road. Anything could happen. He could lose form badly and never score another century, and how many things could happen. So I don't know that I want to select a player that is currently playing, unless you're like a Brian Lara or a Sachin Tendulkar, that kind of class player. But I would not definitely would not go for a player who's actually still physically playing. I mean, Barry Wilkinson talked a little bit about Cook, Alistair Cook.
Yeah.
For him to play so long and still maintain a 45 average, that tells you that he has been prolific. He has been amazing, the most successful batsman coming out of England. And for, I mean, the longer you play, the more chances of the average going down. So if he can play so long and still maintain a 45 average as an opening batsman, that tells you that he's a class player.
So how are we looking where you all are concerned?
Wayne's opinion, the players that are active are ruled out immediately for Wayne. I'm not sure if many of our panelists and our online voters will agree with that. So Chris Gayle and David Warner are the two players who are still playing, although Chris Gayle isn't playing Test cricket anymore, and I think we can conclusively say that Chris Gayle doesn't play Test cricket anymore, or will not play cricket anymore at the Test level. We are going to a break though, Mariah and Wayne, and when we come back, we go back to our panelists and get a look at the entire list of 12, and we have to eliminate 6 of them. We've already heard Barry and Tino best give their opinion on the first frame of 5 cricketers and who they like to be retained and to be eliminated. The Cricket Ultimate 11 on SportsMax, The Zone, after this.
I don't like cricket, no, no. I love it, I don't like cricket, oh no. I say I don't like cricket, oh no. I love it.
The SportsMax Ultimate Cricket 11 for Test cricket, and we are looking at the openers today, and we are narrowing down our list of 12 openers to 6 on today's Ultimate Text 11 discussions. Remember, these are the picks of the panelists only, as you can still have a say. Until the 22nd of May, as a viewer, you can be picking your team, and all throughout the coming couple of weeks, you have an opportunity to put your 11 in, and from now, as we said, until the 22nd of May. Vote by going to www.sportsmax.tv/ultimate and select your 11. Online votes will be counting for 40% of the overall decision. The zone team selections, the presenters, us, 30%, that's the value of our views, and 30% for our panelists as well. I wanted to make a quick comment on the current voting online, because online, Alistair Cook, Gordon Greenwich, and Sunil Gavaskar are carrying the most support from a voting standpoint at the moment. Alistair Cook 33.3%, Gordon Greenwich 36.6%, and Sunil Gavaskar 31.25%. No other player among the 5 has passed the 30% mark apart from these 3. So at the moment, Mariah, Wayne, Tino, Chris Taylor, and Barry Wilkinson, Cook, Greenwich, and Sunil Gavaskar are the ones most favoured. I think we have some volume now on Chris Taylor. Chris, welcome to the SportsMax Zone and the Ultimate 11 discussion for Test cricket. We haven't heard from you because of audio issues. Your look at the first 5, because that's where we were. We had 5 boxed pictures of the 5 of the 12 players involved, and we want to get your quick comments on those and the ones that you would eliminate from the 5. I think Tino Best only retained 1, and Barry only retained 2. What's your views on these 5? Let's see them now.
I was going to say that it's not very often that myself and Tino agree on the cricket field.
Yes.
But I must say in this scenario, I actually agree with what he had said. I actually think that Graham Smith, unlike what Barry has said, I think that Graham Smith certainly had his struggles against India and Sri Lanka, where places that had a lot of spin bowling. I don't think all round Graham Smith exuded all the abilities in terms of negotiating both spin and pace. And I thought that was a struggle for him throughout his career, very leg-sided, and had big issues on the offside and especially to spin. Graham Smith, for me, would have missed out. I think David Warner as well, not very good outside of Australia. So I agree with Barry with that. I think he averaged only in the mid-30s outside of Australia and very dominant in Australia, which shows his inadequacies once he got on that plane. So I think for him, he would also miss out for me. The struggle with Alistair Cook is I think he used every drip of his talent, to be honest. Probably overachieved as an opening batsman. I thought he was actually pretty limited, but very dogged in mentality and so on.
Okay.
I agree with Wayne that it is hard to look past Sunil Gavaskar, a man who would have come up in the era of the great fast bowling. He would have played against all the great fast bowlers of that generation.
Yeah. Okay, well,
we would probably be looking at the peak
Chris,
final fast bowling 11.
Yeah, Chris, we're going to get there, but based on what you have contributed along with Barry and Tino, I think it's safe to say that among you 3, Warner and Graham Smith would be out of the first 5 that we showed just now. Let's move to the second 5. There was a quick presentation of that 5 a short while ago, and we're staying with you, Chris Taylor. The next 5 of the 12: Sutcliffe, Hobbs, Hutton, Hayden, Gavaskar. Well, you spoke favorably about Gavaskar just now, so obviously you will favor him among this 5. But are there any in this 5 that you would eliminate immediately?
It's very difficult, Lance. As I say, you spoke to the fact of the early batsmen in the 1900s not getting looked at in the same way. I think that Jack Hobbs, 41 of his 61 matches came against one team, came against Australia. And I think that, unfortunately, it doesn't show what he could have done against a full opposition. Had he traveled to the subcontinent and played a lot more against other teams, how would he have done? And that, to me, is something that we'll never know about Jack Hobbs. So for me, that puts a big question mark against him.
And Chris, just to
But that's not his fault. That's not his fault, Chris. The thing about it is, if you're picking the ultimate Test 11, because he did not play against those teams, it's not his fault. In that era, there was limited travel to Asian continents.
No,
so, it's not his fault. But we're talking about an ultimate team. We're looking at a team of guys who can play against all varieties, who can bat, pace, and spin. So for me, it is not his fault, Jack Hobbs, that he didn't play against the rest. But unfortunately, we never know what he'll be able to do against those varieties.
And that's the same thing with like Sutcliffe, Hobbs, and
Hutton?
And Hutton. No. Because they didn't get to move around enough and play against all the teams. Unlike the players, the more modern day players, as you'd call them. So they were limited. And I agree with Chris that, I mean, you know, even though it's not their fault, the fact remains that if you're trying to pick a team and one person has played 40 games out of 60 against one team, that tells you that we didn't get enough variety in this play and move around and travel around a lot. So therefore, that would go against him in the end.
Yes. So Chris, who are you eliminating from the 5 then, Chris, before we move on to Tino and Barry? From the 5 that you just saw.
About Len Hutton, I think that Len Hutton played against a number of teams because he came in the 1950s, 60s and so on. So I think Len Hutton has done enough to stay. He's a former record holder as well. Yeah. For me, Jack Hobbs should be the man missing out of these 5.
So you're eliminating just one, Jack Hobbs, from this current 5. The others for you will stay.
I would have the other 4 here for now.
Okay, all right.
Similar for me too. I know we're having technical problems, but I just can't forgive Jack Hobbs for the test they played against Australia, and he made so many bad shots in 1928 that he's out for me.
Let's get Barry and Tino to zone in on the second 5. Tino, let's get you first. The second 5 that we've looked at, who is out for you?
I personally believe that looking at those five, I would only choose two from them. The two that I would choose from these five right here is Matthew Hayden. Matthew Hayden, I played against Matthew Hayden. Had the pleasure to make my debut against Matthew Hayden. He's arguably one of the most intimidating opening batsmen that I've ever played against. So for me, and to average 51 as well, it's phenomenal. He is a bully. He is a bully. And then Sunil Gavaskar. Sunil Gavaskar, as Chris said rightfully, he played against all the great fast bowlers of the 80s, a little bit into the 90s somehow, and he took them on. He took on the Jeff Thompsons. He took on the four horsemen of the apocalypse and scored hundreds. He scored a lot of hundreds against the West Indies guys, in the Caribbean and in India. And I just think Sunil Gavaskar, the first man to score over 10,000 runs, one of the original proper openers, I personally believe, in terms of hooking and cutting. So the two I will retain from that five right there is Hayden and Sunil Gavaskar. Of course, Led Hutton and Hobbs are fantastic, but I didn't get to see a lot of them. And to be honest, man, when you look back at these YouTube videos and see the kind of bowling that these guys were facing and stuff, man, come on, man. Be realistic, guys. Come on.
All right, so you've only retained two from the five that we just saw.
Only two.
And that will be Gavaskar and Matthew Hayden. Barry, let's get your take on the five that we just saw. Who is in and who is out?
I actually had all of those five that you had up there.
Wow.
So I had those are my five, and the additional one would have gone between Verandit Seawag and Gordon Greenwich. So those five that you had up there are all five. I have all those men.
Okay.
And last, like I said, I look at two things when I was picking this ultimate opening 11. I looked at the conversion rate of these batsmen.
Yes.
I looked at the level of consistency. And I looked at who they scored runs against in what territories. And even though someone like Hutton and Hobbs did not play a lot on the Asian continent, they were still very consistent even when they left England. And I think that speaks volumes for what they could have done. They obviously has something in them. And to average so highly, 1900s, the conversion rate of 19 to 33, 15 to 25 was very high. And I really rate those guys quite highly. Sutcliffe only played 54 tests. But Sutcliffe averaged 60 and never failed. This man never failed when he picked up the bat. And he was around in an era where he had a great opening partnership. And he also not only had a great opening partnership, but he was one of these cricketers that was very inspirational. They said he was something like Frank Walcott in terms of how he was able to inspire his other teammates. But there was not a lot of Test cricket in those days. So
but Tino,
these many tests are still high.
Tino, we'll take Barry on then, because you just mentioned that you saw YouTube footage of those bowling that Hobbs and Sutcliffe would have been facing, and you weren't impressed. So give Barry your mind.
Brother, I mean, Barry's one of my favorite human beings, but I'm just letting him have a field day. But if you really look back at that cricket, honestly, guys, I mean, all respect, you can only compete in the era that you're born in. So I won't be too hard at them, but I think that bowlers have gotten fitter. Guys have become more consistent, and Sunil Gavaskar and Hayden. I mean, the three guys that I'm gonna really go with out of all these guys is Gordon Greenwich, Sunil Gavaskar, and Hayden. I know I gotta drop one out of those three, but those are the three that I grew up seeing. Those are the three that I have seen taking on the best in the world. Yeah. And that's the three that I'm going to stick with out of the entire openers. I know that I got to make a decision between dropping one. But Barry, if you really look at it, Barry, come on, brother.
Tino, read the autobiography of Sir Garfield Sobers. Have a chat with Sir Wes Hall. Have a chat with Charlie Griffith. And they will tell you how great those men are, how hard those men were to get out, how hard those men were when they played against them. So I'm not going to YouTube videos really.
All right, check it.
Not Sir Jack Hobbs, though. Not Sir Jack Hobbs.
All right, gentlemen. This is my thing. Now, in those days, it's easier to bat pitch-up balls. Cricket was considered the gentleman's game. What happened in the Bodyline series? Everybody surrendered. When it comes to taking on proper fast bowling is when they just give people the credit. And Matthew Hayden and Gordon Greenwich and Sunil Gavaskar hut and cut the fittest and the fastest bowlers ever played Test cricket. I am not saying that Hutton and Hobbs and Sutcliffe and those guys aren't good, but they were batting in an era that you had to play the cricket game like a gentleman. You had to run up and pitch at every single ball at the stumps. I am talking about being competitive, guys. That era is about the gentleman's game. Bodyline series is one of the biggest series in the world because it started controversy. Everybody wanted to stop playing cricket when guys started to bowl bouncers.
All right,
I only rate openers who can handle bouncers and can cut and hit the ball.
Let's move quickly though, Barry, to the final two because we still have two to assess. I think based on what Tino said, I don't think he has any time for the two that are coming up.
Let's see the two.
Who are these two? Christopher Henry Gale and Virendra Sehwag. Tino.
Yeah, I between you and I, guys, look. Too easy to get out. Too easy to get out. I don't care when nobody tell me. Too easy to get out. Chris Gale scored runs because he had really good hand and eye coordination. When Chris came up against Tremenda Vast with the ball swinging and anybody challenging Chris's technique, he failed. The same thing with Virendra Sehwag. Anybody that bowled at them the proper line and length, Sehwag don't get behind the line of the ball. Chris don't get in line with the ball. I just batsmen who get in line with the ball, who ain't afraid to get hit with the ball.
But Tina, Virendra had
talking about ultimate 11.
Yeah, Virendra had 22 Test hundreds.
These two can't make it.
Virendra had 22 Test hundreds and average 50.
When he was consistent.
I do not care, guys. We're talking about the best of the best.
I don't think Virendra Sehwag and Chris Gale are in the same league in Test cricket, to be honest. I actually think that Virendra Sehwag was a technically better player than Chris Gale. I actually don't think that Chris Gale should be in the best of all time list. Sorry, Chris.
Sorry. Yeah,
I mean, it's great that he scored 2 triple centuries, don't get me wrong. But 1500s from 103 matches and the inconsistency that he showed, especially with footwork, leaves a lot to be desired for me. I think Virendra Sehwag technically showed a lot better ability, could negotiate good fast bowling and so on as well, and came in a time where it was also, the game was changing in terms of how openers approach the game in Test cricket. I thought Virendra Sehwag was one of those batsmen who changed how people thought about Test cricket as an opener.
But Chris, Tino, I just want to say one thing. I appreciate that Tino is fighting hard for Gordon Greenwich, a man that I admired as well. However, I remember a medium pacer, Terry Haldeman, hit him down in Australia. He did nothing in Australia until his final tour, when he finally scored his only century in Australia. So you talk about Gordon Greenwich cutting and hooking and playing those back foot drives, yes. But he had no answers in Australia. He struggled badly there. And I think that Gordon, at an average of 44, is lucky to be in there. I know it's your Bayesian and you're pushing for your Bayesian, but I don't see how Gordon can get in there.
Yeah.
Okay, but wait.
He actually averages more as an opener.
Yeah.
But wait, understand this right, Wayne? You got a situation that you only two guys can open the batting.
Correct.
Jesus just might cover. If I go in with two natural openers, I go in with Sunil Gavaskar and Matthew Hayden.
Yeah.
Those are my pick. A right-hander and a left-hander. Because me as an opening bowler is very hard to bowl at a left-hander and a right-hander as an opening bowler. I don't care how great you are. I agree with that. It's a different mindset. So those are the two best openers to me.
I have no issues with that.
Yeah, I think we need Chris and Barry to make a decision on Gordon Greenwich.
I didn't go with Gordon Greenwich, but I just want to say quickly on Chris Gale, and I hope that Chris does not go to YouTube and blaspheme when I say this. But when you look at Chris in terms of opening batsman, Chris's consistency was a bit questionable. Chris scored 300 runs against Sri Lanka, but didn't finish the series with not even 400 runs. So sometimes you had Chris scoring heavily, but then he fell away. So I think Chris's consistency was what might have just killed his cricket a little bit. Yeah. He was a devastating opener. Like Sehwag, he changed the game in terms of how people thought about opening batsmen in Test cricket.
Right. Yeah. Well, Barry, of the 12 players on the shortlist, Chris has the worst average of about 43. I need for you to decide though on Virender Sehwag, because Greenidge and Sehwag are two of the opening batsmen that there is the views of the panelists aren't converging.
We're only cutting 4, right, Lance? We're only cutting
We're cutting 6.
We're cutting
You're
6.
cutting 6.
We're cutting 6.
Come to me last. The pendulum is swinging between Sehwag and Greenidge for me. Let me think about it in 10 seconds.
Barry, you're a call.
Yeah, just cut. Barry, come on. Barry, you were confident when we started.
I will go for Virender Sehwag because I was going to make the same point with Wayne.
Yes.
I think in terms of his consistency in Australia, where you had to be good, you had to be great. I think Gordon Greenidge's series in Australia didn't do him justice to his overall career.
Yeah.
And if I had to look at Virender Sehwag, I think he was a more consistent player for his average,
yes.
And he also had a much better conversion rate. He had 23 centuries,
Chris,
which is pretty good.
Chris Taylor, we need your opinion. We need your take on Virender Sehwag. Is he in or out for you?
He's in. Sehwag is in.
Chris Taylor, is Sehwag in for you?
No, I think so. I think Sehwag could make the shot list. Let me get this straight. I have a lot of respect for the batsmen who came in the 1970s to say 90 era, a time where I thought the contest was a lot more even. The bats were not developed in the way they were, edges were true, and the game was fully even. So guys like Gavaskar and Greenidge and those guys who grew up in that era, their averages might not necessarily reflect how good they were compared to a man who grew up in the 2000s and edges were flying in the crowd for 60.
Yeah.
So, but I do have a lot of respect for Virender Sehwag.
Yes.
I would not necessarily have cut either himself or Greenidge in the initial cut.
Yes.
But if I had to choose one, I would have to agree with Barry that Sehwag's consistency and appetite for big runs throughout his career would probably give him the nod.
All right. Well, let's look at the groups now, and based on what you all have said, our producers have made their elimination. So from the first group, Warner, Greenidge, and Graham Smith are out, leaving Boycott and Alistair Cook. That's the first 5. The second 5, Jack Hobbs is out. Gavaskar, Hayden, Len Hutton, and Herbert Sutcliffe. I think Tino will be happy about this because I think he said he had all 5 here. Or was it Barry? It was Barry. Barry said he had all 5 here. So Hobbs the only one out here. And Sehwag stays and Chris Gale goes. So we are down to 7.
They have one more to cut.
We're down to 7, gentlemen. Your job isn't done yet. Of the 7 players that are standing, 1 has to go out.
For me, it would be Boycott or Alistair Cook. I made my feelings known about Alistair. 161 Test matches. The thing about Alistair Cook versus all those other players. He's the only cricketer in the entire 12 that was on the cusp of being dropped and was dropped for England. He came back and fought in his last series and scored, I think, a wonderful Test century in his last innings. But this man was on a thread.
Yes.
Too many times he was on a thread for England. I would drop Cook, and if it had to be on 70.
I would have to keep Boycott. It goes with what I'm saying. Boycott came in an era of great fast bowling. In Boycott's era, England only lost 20 matches, I think, in his 100 and odd matches, which showed the necessity for Boycott in that top order. Yes, he was negative as an opener, but he was solid.
Yeah.
And I would like to favour him over Alistair Cook.
Yeah, but
thank you very much.
We're more interested, though, Chris, in who you're dropping. Tino, of the 7 remaining, who is the one you're dropping?
I go cut Alistair Cook as all you hit the points. I go with Jeff Boycott, which is my original pick. I honestly believe that he look. Even though we know that he was famous for the Bridgetown Test in 1981, the same year he was born. Mikey Holden, arguably some people say the fastest over ever bowled, and to face that for 6 balls and I know that his stump get cartwheel, but this man is a living legend, guys. I lived on this guy for 6 months. Hear the stories about about his mindset. You know, you were getting stories about he was a bit selfish and stuff, but in terms of playing cricket for the value of cricket, as the great Bunny Wailer said, I think Jeff Boycott has to be in that top 6. And if he gets cut out of the top 6, so be it. But if we are going to cut anybody, I think that Alistair Cook has to go.
Yeah, and I think based on the combination of you three, I think Cook probably goes. So we are going to look at the 6 remaining, which we had planned to do anyhow, to confirm the 6 in, to leave us with 6 to be confirmed, or 6 to be whittled down to 2 on the second day. Tino, Barry, Chris, thank you very much for being part of this segment on the SportsMax Zone, the Ultimate 11. Here are the players of the 12 that are out. Cook, Warner, Greenidge, Smith. So Jeff Boycott in from that group. Out from the second group, Jack Hobbs is out. So Sutcliffe, Hutton, Matthew Hayden. Mariah will be happy about Len Hutton because she has Len Hutton in.
And I have Hayden.
Matthew Hayden and Sunil Gavaskar. And Virendra Sehwag of the last group stays in, and Chris Gale is out. So there is your 6. The zone presenters, myself, Mariah, Wayne, George has votes as well.
Yes.
Will announce our picks tomorrow when the 2 will be selected. And we thank our first day panelists for their input in today's show. Of course, as a viewer, you remember that you have until the 22nd of May to put your team in. We have to decide on the players sectionally. As we said, we dealt with the openers today. 2 days from now, we look to batsmen 3 to 5. Then we look at a wicket keeper, we look at an all-rounder, and we look at the bowlers. So we now have the players, the 6 players on the opening position that will go into tomorrow's discussion, where we will have to drop 4 of them and decide on 2. Remember, the zone presenters, 30%, the value of our presentations. The panelists, also 30%, and the viewer will have a 40% weight placed on your views. And I did mention earlier on that Sunil Gavaskar, Alistair Cook, and Gordon Greenidge were the popular votes online as we looked at the voting and how it's been going so far. Don't forget that on the second day of our openers discussion, we will be back with our panelists. There are the votes at the moment. Alistair Cook, 33.35. He's off though, so the viewers not in sync with our panelists.
Right, look at Chris Gale as
Chris Gale, 20%, David Warner, 8%, Jeffrey Boycott, 11%, Gordon Greenidge, 36%, Graham Smith, 7.9%, Sutcliffe, 1.2%, Hobbs, 3.75%, Hutton, 6.25%, Matthew Hayden, 23.33%, Sunil Gavaskar, 31.25%. We go to break. Mariah is next up with the second zone updates.
I don't like cricket.